Could a single cup of coffee thrown across a room start a revolution? Hi there, I'm Chris with a K, and welcome back to This Week in Queer History, where we find hope-filled, inspirational, and strategic moments from queer history that we can use today. Today we're going back 60 years to a late night in a greasy cafeteria in San Francisco's Tenderloin district. 3 years before Stonewall, before the marches, before the flags, a single trans woman whose name we may never know threw a cup of coffee in a police officer's face, and everything changed. This is the story of the Compton Cafeteria Uprising.
This week in queer history, stories told with love and glee.
Let's set the scene. It's 1966, and San Francisco has the reputation as the most tolerant city in America. The Beat generation made North Beach famous. Haight-Ashbury is blooming into the counterculture capital of the world. But here's the thing. Tolerance is not the same as safety, not even close. If you were a transgender woman in San Francisco in 1966, you could be arrested for wearing clothing belonging to the opposite sex, with the intent to deceive. A trans woman could be hauled off to jail because her shirt buttons were on the wrong side. Yeah, think about that. Shirt buttons. That same year, Dr. Harry Benjamin published The Transsexual Phenomenon, a landmark text that helped legitimize transgender identity. Benjamin had a clinical practice at 450 Sutter Street, right there in the heart of San Francisco. So you had a city where a doctor was validating your existence on one block, and the police were criminalizing it on the next. Because, of course, police. Now let's talk about the Tenderloin. The name itself comes from police slang. A Tenderloin district was the most lucrative beat for corrupt officers, the neighborhood where they could shake down illegal establishments for money. In the early 1960s, the city launched urban renewal projects that targeted working-class, visibly queer neighborhoods like North Beach and South of Market. Residents were pushed out through aggressive policing and forced development. So where did they go? The Tenderloin. The result was a concentrated, visible, and increasingly politically conscious queer and transgender community. A community that formed not around abundance, but around survival. For many trans women in the Tenderloin, sex work wasn't a choice. It was survival. Employment discrimination was systematic. Being visibly transgender in public was illegal. Families rejected them. At that time, a serial killer was targeting trans women, sex workers in the neighborhood, and the murders went largely uninvestigated. Felicia Flames Elizondo remembered it this way. A lot of people thought we were sick, mental trash. Nobody cared whether we lived or died. And that brings us to Gene Compton's Cafeteria, located at 101 Taylor Street, right there on the corner of Turk. This was part of a small chain, and it was open at that location from 1954 to 1972. For trans women, drag queens, and queer street youth, Compton's was one of the only places in San Francisco where they could exist in public together without being immediately thrown out. And this matters because gay bars were largely hostile to trans women. Bar owners feared police raids, and transphobia within the gay male community, it was real. And Compton's wasn't exactly rolling out the welcome mat. It was simply one of the few commercial spaces that didn't immediately call the cops. Management actually viewed the trans clientele as a problem. They imposed a discriminatory service charge targeting trans customers. They called the police whenever trans patrons showed up. They physically harassed them too. But people kept coming back because where else were they gonna go? And then in 1965, something powerful started taking shape. Activist Adrienne Ravarauer founded Vanguard, which historians now recognize as one of the first known gay youth organizations in the United States. Meeting at Glide Memorial Methodist Church, Vanguard brought together young queer and trans people in the Tenderloin. They started publishing a magazine, also called The Vanguard, about a month before the Uprising. In the summer of 1966, Vanguard members got banned from Compton's for not spending enough. On July 19th, 1966, they organized a picket outside the cafeteria. A local newspaper ran the headline, "Young Homos Picket Compton's." The political awakening was already underway. And then came the night that everything changed. August 1966, late hours. A police officer inside Compton's cafeteria grabbed a trans woman by the arm to arrest her. She threw her cup of hot coffee in his face. The cafeteria erupted. Sugar shakers flew, dishes crashed, tables overturned, windows shattered. People poured into the street, and it didn't stop. The uprising lasted into a second night. Management responded by closing the restaurant at midnight instead of staying open 24 hours. They also installed heavy plate glass window to replace the one that was destroyed. But the regulars came back and they shattered that one too. It had hit a breaking point. They were fed up and they could not take it anymore. Here's what I find so fascinating and I love about the story, that it wasn't planned. There was no manifesto, no organizing committee for that specific night. These were people who fought back with the tools they had on hand. Sugar shakers, heavy purses, high heels, and their voices. And what grew from that night was extraordinary. Within months, the National Transsexual Counseling Unit was established, the first peer-run transgender support organization in the world. Officer Elliot Blackstone became the first police community liaison for transgender people in any U.S. city. The Central City Anti-Poverty Program opened an office serving transgender Tenderloin residents. Glide Memorial Church expanded its services. This uprising, 3 full years before Stonewall, began to build infrastructure. It built something that would last. In 2005, Susan Stryker and Victor Silverman produced Screaming Queens, The Riot at Compton's Cafeteria. It was a documentary that rescued this story from nearly 4 decades of erasure. In 2017, the Tenderloin was designated a transgender cultural district, one of the first in the world. And in 2025, the site was added to the National Register of Historic Places. But stay with me because this story, it hits really close to home. A big thank you to our members who make this work possible. They help me find and share the moments from queer history that remind us we've always been here and we've always been resilient. If you want to be a part of this, check out the description. There's a link that you can become a member. And if money is tight right now, I totally get it. But subscribing and sharing episodes helps more than you know. Thanks for being a part of this. As I was researching and learning about Comptons, I started thinking about language, about who gets to name what happens. For decades, this was called a riot, not an uprising. And to me, words matter. The word riot comes from the people in power, the people who own the businesses, the people who were holding the norm. But the word uprising comes from the people who had been pushed out of their places, pushed to the extremes, pushed into the Tenderloin because everywhere else had been taken from them. And Compton's was the only place where they could meet, they could gather, they could afford to sit down and have community. When even that was being taken away, they had to resist. They had to rise up. And that distinction, it changes something in how I understand this story. It's not about chaos. It's about how people who had been squeezed into smaller and smaller places until there was nowhere to go but through. And thinking about that, I started to think about my own life and how I've always gravitated towards cities, the boroughs and the neighborhoods where I felt accepted, where I felt community. New York, Los Angeles, now West Hollywood. Those places didn't just give me a zip code. They gave me permission to become who I am. They gave me my chosen family, my shared history, and a sense that I belong somewhere. And that's what Compton's Cafeteria was for those trans women and drag queens in 1966. Maybe not a great restaurant and not a welcoming space so much either, but the one space where they could sit together and simply exist. And when you understand that, when you understand what it means to lose the only place where you're allowed to be yourself, you understand why a cup of coffee became an act of revolution. We need more of these spaces. We need more of these neighborhoods. We need more opportunities to gather and create community. Because when we have a place to sit together, we have a place to organize, to dream, and to fight. And when someone tries to take that away, we know exactly what to do. The women of Compton's Cafeteria taught us that 60 years ago. And thanks to them, because we could really use that lesson today. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please tell me what spaces have been important to you, or if there's a story from your past about somewhere that was really meaningful. And if you want to check out more queer history, you can check the video popping up right now. And if you want to stay connected, the best way to do that is by joining the email list. You'll get queer history downloads, early word on upcoming releases, and invitations to community moments as we grow together. The link is down in the description. Until next time, stay strong, stay bold, and keep making history.